That's right, boys and girls. We're going to be talking about evil. What is it? Who is it? How does it manifest? Who is, who isn't? What is and what isn't? This might be a waffle to camera, but we all like a little bit of a waffle, don't we? Belgian, preferably. Something puddingy, cakey. Are cakey waffles evil? Well, that depends how much you like carbs and whether you have a gluttony for carbs. Is gluttony evil? Well, gluttony is a sin. So any overindulgence in stuff that's sinful could be described as evil. But is it? Well, evil has a certain nature and can be described as that which has a lack of absolute compassion, meaning anybody who is 100% void of thinking of the consequences of their actions. They will reap what they sow, and they will claim anything that they can via any means necessary, regardless of the consequences to whoever. Now, how do we recognize this in people? Well, that's quite easy. Because when we see people going for a power grab, trying to ascertain a position, trying to get some notoriety for who they are and what they do, regardless of the consequences of what happens when they perform actions, that's when you know that people are evil. And yes, that's not too strong of a term. It's not hyperbolic. It's not out of the way or something that should be ignored or put aside. People are evil. There are evil people in the world. And what are they doing at the moment? Well, they are seizing power and control through whatever means necessary. They are saying that they want to maintain that power and control by getting rid of anybody who might get in the way of it or take it from them, or spread some truth about them that might reveal their true nature as being evil. And why are they doing it? Well, there is this concept that there has to be one of ultimate control. There has to be one of ultimate power, ultimate dominance over everybody else. There has to be one who sucks the soul and the life from the world to be able to control what they want to control. Are they doing it with money? Well, let's see who's making money. If you look at the people who are making money, why do they want that money? Why have they been given that money? Well, that's because they're in areas of large control, mainly corporate control of what you buy, when you buy it, who you can give it to, how you can transfer the money to them and from them and to each other. It's all about commerce. And then we have people who are in political control, who tend to bend the will of governments around the world to get them to do the things that allow the people above them to be in control. Now, does this make the people who are at the bottom evil? Well, yes. Why? Because they go ahead and they implement what is called of them from above, and regardless of the consequences, because they think that they have some sort of power or some sort of control from their actions, and they're going to get some sort of approval or reward for doing it, they go ahead and do it, regardless of the consequences or who it affects or what it affects. Whether that's short-term, long-term, whether it affects themselves or others or their family, directly, indirectly, they just don't care. They will do whatever they want for power and control, regardless of the consequences. Now, people get it mistaken, and there's certain people in certain positions who will do things looking like they're acquiescing control and power and maybe some money and reward from a place where they don't deserve it. And people will see that, and call that out as being the bad thing. But what they have to look at is, what are the consequences of what they are doing? Who are they hurting by what they're doing? Who's going to die from what they're doing? Who else is removed from a position of control or power or dominance or receiving finance? And that's where people get it twisted. And that's why the world is screwed up at the moment. Because there are certain people, are certain people who are doing what they were doing to take control away from others who are looking to have that power and control and dominance to be able to lay waste to everyone else. Now, why people can't see that, and why everybody lies about that, and why people get it twisted and tell you their twisted ideas, it's because they are evil. They want the power, the control, the dominance, and they want to be able to do it all while doing away with anyone else, regardless of the consequences. They don't care who dies, who gets negatively affected, whose business shuts, whose child commits suicide from depression, who dies from a lack of immunity to something, who dies from an allergic reaction to a chemical that they haven't experienced before. We are seeing it in action now. Evil is upon us, and evil is trying to work to acquiesce power and control for nothing else but wanting power and control. They don't want anything to do with it. They just want to have it because they're greedy, lustful, envious people who can't accept that someone else may have some sort of freedom to do what they want. So how do we overcome it? How do we resist this evil? Firstly, you have to recognize it. And if you can't recognize it, then you're in a bleak and dangerous place, because someone will take advantage of you. Someone will ruin you. Someone will take your life or your possessions or your ability to do something. So it's time for you to wake up a bit and get a grip and actually be able to recognize these things. The first thing you have to recognize is, 1, who wants the power? Secondly, what are the consequences to you of them having that power? And thirdly, can you take that power away from them without violent retribution? Of course, nobody wants to commit violence. Nobody should commit violence. Violence should not happen. It should not be the answer. But when you feel that someone has pinned you in a corner, has taken away your ability to speak, has taken away your ability to associate with other people, has taken away your ability to believe or report any of your belief to people, you have no redress for your grievance with this person other than physical action. It's the last thing left. It is the only thing you can do to save whatever semblance of a life you think you have. That's where we are now. That's where this is dangerous. This is why people are being removed and why there is this uproar, because they have put themselves in a position where they have left other people with no action, and the last action that may be taken against them will be in defense of a life, an actual life, a living person protecting themselves from dying. And I don't mean dying politically or dying from speech on the internet or being put into exile somewhere where they can't be heard or speak to anybody. I mean actual death. What you have to realize is that people have done actions to put themselves in a position of power, to be able to take it away from everyone else, to leave you helpless, so that if you die from what they do, they can't be held accountable. No one can resist it. It can just happen. You are powerless to change things. They will be forever in power and never give it back and never be taken over until the day that they are no longer with us. So with this powder keg of a situation where people are being driven into a corner by people who can't help but want power and are greedy for it and are envious of other people. What comes next? What do you do? Well, unless they are literally the people who have this power, who are in charge, who can do this to you, unless they are literally at your door, right in front of you at this very point in time, being physically abusive towards you, or using someone else to be physically abusive towards you, you ignore them. You just disengage. You don't look at them, you don't talk to them, you don't hear them, you don't talk about them. You effectively do what they've done to you. If they've censored you, if they've taken you off the internet from every platform going, if they've said that your speech is unreasonable and can't be heard, if they've said that you can't leave your house for some reason, what do? You pretend they don't exist. You give them no power, no ownership, no leverage upon you. You walk away. You do your own thing. You go fully private. You take what they have control of away from their ability to control it. And when this reaches the point where it is those who govern us, either by election or appointment, the only way you can do that is by removing money and removing their voice and removing their influence. And so the only thing that stands between you and the government is the law and those who choose to enforce it. Now, what they recognize as the law and what they recognize as what they have to enforce, that is where the evil comes in. So can police be evil? Yes. What would an evil policeman do? Or cops for you Americans. They will take away your ability to speak. They will not listen to what you have to say in your own defense. So what do? You don't speak. That's why the Fifth Amendment was created. If you don't speak, they can't use your speech against you, and that takes away their power. And then when they get violent, what do? You go limp. You lay on the floor. You allow them to do what they're going to do, until the point you think it may result in your death or permanent harm. Then you may resist. And people won't like me saying that, especially the overlords who wish to censor everything. They're like, resist? You can't resist. You are not there to resist. You must be helpless. You must be tamed by the state and its authority. No, you can resist. If someone is being unreasonably forceful with you to the point where you think the only way that you are not going to come to some sort of permanent harm or death is to resist, then resist. And don't worry about the consequences of it, because the other consequence of it is you die. So yes, defend yourself by all means. If someone is being violent to the point where you think your life is at risk, even if that person is in a high-vis or specially badged jacket that says that they have been given some authority by someone else to be able to injure you beyond repair, because that's not on, and that is a crime by the state. That in itself is sedition of the sovereign that put them into the position they are. What shall we do? Recognize evil in those who wish to obtain power without question for the use of that power to their own advantage at the detriment of anyone else, and their lack of compassion for the consequence, their lack of any reasonable expectation to stop wanting to get that power and to use it upon you. That is what evil is. We've seen these people. We know they exist. You must recognize them. And then to overcome it, you ignore them. Whatever rules they wish to place upon you, you go against them, as long as it doesn't violate the moral integrity of not violating someone else's rights, or their person, or property. Don't do that. Just ignore the person trying to make the rules. Secondly, you must gain as much control as you can over yourself through self-discipline and over your ability to acquire resources. So if you can have your own shelter regardless of someone else, good. If you can have your own food regardless of anybody else, good. Your own water, your own fuel to keep warm. If you can take your family out of the hands of other people, do it. All of this homeschooling that's going on in the moment, that should be a permanent recourse, because sending your children to school at the moment is not a good idea. Why? Because the school, especially if it's not a private school, is therefore a state school, run by the state, for the advantage of the state, for the use of the state. And if it is the state that has become all-powerful, all unaccountable, all tyrannical, and placing rules upon you that don't need to be there for any other reason than they have power and they want to have power for as long as they can hold on to it, take it away from them. You could go the whole hog and stop paying taxes. That is the major one. If you feel that we are at a point at the moment where the government has become too big for its boots, is making up too many rules, is placing too many things upon your life that seem like they're just there because they can be there, council tax, or property tax as it's known in America, if you can stop paying it, stop paying it. Road tax, if you can stop paying it, stop paying it. There are not enough police to enforce all of this. If everybody does it on a mass movement in a peaceful protest, because it doesn't harm anybody apart from the finances of the government and their ability to spend or make money or place tax rules upon you, it is the most peaceful thing you can do. That is the strongest protest against the government. Stop paying taxes. But you have to do it en masse. It can't be one person. It can't be the odd few who have woken up to the fact that evil exists and they can recognize it and they know that it's happening to them. It has to be everybody at once in a coordinated effort. And I really feel like there are enough people at the moment who are in the position that we are in, who can collectivize and stop doing it all at once. And I mean hundreds of thousands of people at once. Just stop doing it. And when it comes to protest, and when it comes to them wanting to shut down protest, what do? You do a sit-in. You don't make any noise. You don't display any message. You don't get rowdy. You don't sing songs. You don't have a stage or a platform with speakers. You don't submit any presentation. You just go to a public place and you have a sit-in. You just occupy the public place. And you can even abide by the menial rules that they want you to have. If they say wear a mask and keep 6 feet apart, you wear a mask and keep 6 feet apart and only sit next to one person. But you perform a sit-in in silence with no message whatsoever, apart from the fact that you will be outside, you will congregate, you will enjoy yourself, and that you are there to occupy a piece of land in which you can occupy. Find a public park. Find a town square. Don't go and sit in the road. Don't do what Extinction Rebellion do. Don't do what Black Lives Matter do and occupy a street and put yourselves in danger or at risk of being arrested for occupying a road. Just occupy a public space that's perfectly reasonable to go and be in, that at any other time you would allow to be in and congregate in whatever group size you want without any other restrictions placed upon you. Just go and assemble. But don't talk. Don't display anything other than the fact that you are there being defiant, in silence. And if they choose to arrest you, it's unlawful arrest. Why? Because you're not doing anything wrong. You haven't broken any law. All of these coronavirus restrictions where they're saying that you can't congregate with so many people, you can't display a protest, you can't arouse a crowd, you can't do this, that or the other. If you're just sitting in silence in a public place where you're allowed to sit, they can't arrest you. And if they do arrest you, you can bring legal consequences against them. But not if the judiciary is evil. And are the judiciary evil? Well, there's certain members of it who are, who take their power and use their power to not apply the law, to bend the law, to change the rules, to apply some obscure rule that they can make up to get their way. It's all there. It's all happened. We've all witnessed it. We are in tricky times, and it is because people don't recognise the evil, and people don't know where they're being lied to. And people have been lied to, and they've bought into it, and they have missed the point of these evil people and what they want and what they're trying to do. But they are here. They are doing it. You just have to recognise it. And as I've said, to take away their power, you just ignore them. You pretend they don't exist. You don't abide by their rules. You don't do what they say. You don't engage with anything that they want to put in place. You do you. You remain lawful. You don't do anything that violates anybody else's personal property. And as I say, the strongest thing we can do right now is go out en masse, occupy a public place in silence with no message, no paraphernalia. Don't wear anything significant to point out anything. Don't wear all black or coordinated colours. Just go and be human beings wearing what you normally wear. Just go and stand there or sit down in silence. But show them that you will go out. You will be you. You will do what you want. And the other thing is stop paying taxes, especially the taxes that you can't control, namely council tax, property tax, road tax, whatever that may be, vehicle tax in America, I don't know. Do not send your children to school, even when schools are open. If you remove your children from them and you force them to close because the teachers want them closed anyway, then they will stay closed and there will be no point of the teachers. And then the teachers' unions will get up in arms and they will be like, well, we have no children to teach. What is the point in us? And then the government will start getting rid of teachers or start paying them less or start closing schools and not funding them. And then people will get even more tired of the situation and be like, why are we going this way? Well, the reason we are going this way is because the government has become tyrannical and we need to take their power away from them. And the main way you take power away from the government is that you go fully private, you get off the government teat, you stop using their resources, and you stop paying for them as a consequence for you not using them. And if anybody tries to arrest you or tries to charge you in court with some sort of weird obscure rule, then you are within your full right to get a lawyer, to get enough of you together and say, no, stop, you cannot do this. We have recognised your evil and we are taking the power away from you. And we know you don't like that, and you will throw a temper tantrum and you will try to get rid of us and place every single rule upon us that you can and slam us all in prison. You've seen this following the actions on the 6th. You've seen what the Democrats are doing, the way that they're acting, the way that they want to shut down everybody who's against them, the way that they're on mass panic because of the things that may be revealed. The fact that they're trying to move Trump when he's only got, what, 12 days? 11 days left in office? Why? Because there is something upon them. There is something that is known about them. there is some evidence of something that they have done or are doing that they do not want the world to know about. And that is why they can't have anybody in a position of power using that power against them, because they're greedy for it, they're hungry for it, they can't resist. They are snarling, demonic, possessed people who won't stop until they get the power that they want. And why do they want it? For money and for the sake of power. They have this control over people because it makes them feel worthy, because they think it's what they've been given by being elected. It's like they have no compassion. They don't recognize anybody else. They think that they are there to get what they want through their own means, by any consequence necessary to be able to achieve it. They don't give a crap. You have to recognize that. That is what evil is. The complete absence of compassion for anything. The complete possession of the will to take power or control and enact greed and envy and their sick and twisted ways, and however they can get a hold of it. And that is what we have seen. The more it comes towards them, the more that they know that they're being called out, the more that they know that things are being revealed about them that they don't want revealed, the more information that they know somebody else holds that they can use against them, the more they panic, the more they react violently in fear. It's exactly like when you perform an exorcism or you show a demon a mirror. It's like they soon recognize the fact that they are evil and they can't handle it. They don't want to be known as evil. They think they're doing good. And what good are they doing? None. None whatsoever. No good apart from their own bank balance, or the fact that they can manipulate people into doing what they want. It is sick. It is evil. It is to be resisted at all cost. And what happened and what is happening is exactly that. It is evil on a power grab. And now they have some small slice of it. They can't bear to let it go. And because someone may have something that they can use to take that power away from them, they are screaming bloody hell to try and claw back whatever they can claw back. I hope this has been useful. I hope this has helped you recognize what evil is, what evil does, and how to resist it and walk away from it. You speak the truth, you retain your power to speak, and when you feel that someone is trying to take that power away from you, you take it away from them by not complying in the most peaceful way you can. You remain silent, you don't act upon their rules or what they tell you they want you to do. You just stand in front of them, defiant, in silence, and you stop giving them the resources that they use to control you. When we're in this day and age where certain people in certain countries, in certain positions, want to be able to take things away from everybody else, they will do so by any means necessary. And one of those means will be through the internet, via telecommunications devices, mainly fake accounts that they can automate to be able to do things on their behalf, because it speeds everything up for them. It means that they can get someone else to control the tech behind it all. And then they don't have to do anything. All they have to do is find someone who can code for them. That learned code is a double-edged sword. The police really don't like it when you resist. If anybody saw the scenes of what went down at the London protest today, if that was your jam, or if you were there, then the fact that they need so many police, they know that they're going to get resisted. They know what they're doing is wrong. That's why they want so many. Because if anybody stands up and displays any sort of resistance or even tells them that what they're doing is wrong, they don't like it. They think that they're doing good. They think that they're protecting people from someone evil trying to spread a disease that has been proven and has been said by the WHO. And you can't defy the WHO. We're supposed to be toeing the WHO line. If the WHO says that asymptomatic spread isn't a thing and that lockdowns don't work, why are we still running on the lie that asymptomatic people are infectious and should be controlled and should be demonized and said that they're killing people simply by leaving their houses? I tell you why. Because they're evil. That is how you recognize evil. It's hypocritical. It lies to you all the time. It can't reverse itself. It's lie after lie after lie, because they tell one lie and then they have to tell more lies to cover up their lies. But then you pick it out and you call them hypocritical and you say, well, you lied here and you lied there, and now you won't decide which one of the lies that you want to run with, and now you're caught in a trap of your own making. You have revealed your own evil. Why don't people recognize that? When people are hypocritical, when they've said one thing and they do something else, or they've said one thing at one time and now they say something later, and they'll cover it up, and they'll try and cover it up in the middle by saying, oh, we had more evidence. And it's like, why did you not deduce from the evidence that you were given in the first place the correct course of action? It's almost like you thought that you were being lied to. You thought that someone was trying to manipulate you, that you thought you were in a position where if you didn't bow down to the control mechanism of someone else's lie upon you and what they would do if you didn't follow it. That's why evil is at more than one level. That's why it's not one person. That's why it's not tangible in most people's minds. That's why they can't recognize it. But I hope the beginning of this presentation helped you to recognize it. And if you find any examples and you wish to point them out, put them in the comments. Tell me where you recognize evil. And if this has been useful and helped you recognize where evil exists, then also leave a comment on that, or place a like on this video. That would be useful. And if you feel that the information you've received is useful elsewhere, please share this video. Or this channel. There's other streams I've done. I will link them in a card somewhere or on an end screen. And I encourage you to watch. You may think that I'm a complete twat, that I'm talking nonsense, that I don't know anything, that I'm just some weird and wacky conspiracy theorist pulling together evidence that isn't evidence. It's just erroneous spots that don't count for anything. Oh, you've heard it somewhere, so therefore you're linking this, that and the other. And it's like, sometimes in your life you have to learn that you can deduce things from human behaviour, from a pattern of that behaviour, from a group of actions taken by a group of people. There doesn't have to be this tangible, picturesque, perfectly spelled out, spoon-fed evidence for you to see, to know that it's going on. You get a sense of these things. You will learn to recognize evil. It does exist. It is upon you. It does act. What does it do? How does it construct itself? Well, I'll tell you one thing. Firstly, it tells you something that makes you fearful of something, that prevents you from taking an action you would otherwise think is safe to do, is perfectly normal to do. It will tell you that that action is somehow unsafe, somehow brings harm to somebody else, somehow hurts you by performing it. Secondly, they will tell you that you have to do something else for your own good, or for the good of someone else. They will say, oh look, you're doing this thing is harmful to you or someone else, so do this instead. This will rectify the harm, this will get rid of it, this will allow you to be a good and kind person. But what you haven't realised is that that's where the manipulation is, that's where the step is, that's when they've taken control, that's when they've said that this perfectly normal behaviour, It's a perfectly reasonable action that doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't do anything. It's just an action that you do because it's there to be done, and it doesn't do anything but provide something for you that you want to get out of it. And they say all of a sudden that doing it is a bad thing. That's when you should prick your ears up, open your eyes, be prepared to notice and listen and evaluate and process, because that's when evil takes its first step. The second step is that you will stop doing this thing that they've told you you can't do, because if you do it, it's a bad thing. And you will say, oh, I'm doing it for the greater good of other people. I feel nice by doing it because it helps the world. It changes something that needs changing. There is a dire problem that I can help just by doing this one little thing. And then they will say that you're not doing enough. That what you've done is now inconsequential because there's new evidence to say that whatever you've changed doesn't go far enough. It doesn't remove the risk. You are still at risk. You are still putting someone at risk. You've still not given up adequate control over something for the benefit of someone else. Whenever somebody tells you you're doing it for the greater good, you should recognize that the greater good is not the purpose of them trying to change your action. It's for their good. Whatever they tell you you're doing for someone else, you are doing it for them because they want you to do it. And then what does that amount to in the end? You've stopped doing this thing, this erroneous thing that wasn't hurting anybody, that was a perfectly normal action 5 minutes ago before they told you that it wasn't. And then you feel guilt because they've told you to go further. You're like, well, I didn't do it well enough, did I? It was my problem. The thing that I was doing that was hurting everybody else because I was told it was hurting everybody else or hurting me, I haven't stopped doing it hard enough. I have to do it harder, firmer, longer, more restriction. And then that's when you start the manipulation of behaviour, where people start witnessing the other people not doing what they're doing because they don't know that it's wrong to do, that it's causing this bad effect, that it's hurting someone or themselves. And then they will turn on you. They will create this separation. That's when you get the divided world. That's when you get the them and the us. That's when you get the conspiracy theorist and the virtuous people who are supposed to be all stars and twinkly stuff and rainbows and unicorns. And then comes the change of language. When you can use language to get out of it because you can explain the truth and you can show that they've been manipulated and that what they're doing is based on a lie. If they were to carry on doing what they were doing before someone told them that it was bad, it's still perfectly reasonable to do. It's still not hurting anybody. You've been manipulated. Someone has taken control of you. You are now possessed by something demonic that is leading you into a path where you'll actively perform some sort of harm against someone else because you've been brainwashed into thinking that the other person, acting perfectly normally, doing what you've been told that you can't do, you will think that they're being defiant and angry and evil and against the world because they haven't complied, they haven't joined in, they're not part of this Borg that's supposed to be doing whatever you've been told to do. It's what we're seeing now, aren't we? And then the more that you witness other people not complying, not joining in with whatever action you've taken because you think it's the action that needs taking because there's this big bad thing that you're trying to change by changing your actions. That's when it goes from words to violence. And when people don't want to be violent, or they think that being violent won't change things, they try and change words, they try and manipulate the language, they try and bring in a politically correct term to address what is right and what is wrong. They try to invent a problem for you to have to tackle, so that you feel that you're doing it for yourself and by yourself, just by sitting in this space that's controlled by these words that don't really mean anything other than someone else is evil, someone else is doing the bad thing. I am a good person because I'm doing this thing that they've told me to do, because that helps the greater good of the world against this evil thing that they have told me exists. It's plainly obvious to see. Climate change, for instance, racism, xenophobia, the fact that they think that nationalism is a bad thing, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, all of these PC terms to say that someone is doing something bad. The only reason they exist is to hide the fact that someone is doing something evil to you. And whoever points out that this person is doing evil to you, they must be the bad person. They must be the one who's going against this cause for the greater good. That's where the manipulation is. And you've all been suckered into it. All of these movements. BLM, Extinction Rebellion, the Antifa. You're all brainwashed. The transgender movement, the LGBT movement. The whole let Islam do what it wants. Oh, they're not evil. The whole Jews aren't manipulating the world. They're not in control of banking and the media, and they're not everywhere that you could ever be in a position of control that changes things. Oh, Israel, oh, there's just some innocent country in the middle of nowhere never doing anything bad to anybody. Why? Because they've always been oppressed. It's the lie. It's the inverse. It is the satanic world. This whole living in the upside down, where words mean everything backwards, where they get trapped in a loophole of language, where when you point it out, you're the evil person because you can break their spells. And they are spells. It's what magic is. It's the manipulation of words to coerce someone into doing something that defies human nature. And they make you pretend it doesn't exist. They try and convince you it doesn't exist. What is the greatest trick the devil ever pulled? Convincing the world he doesn't exist. How did he do it? Through using words that seem perfectly reasonable, that you think have some sort of meaning you can understand and justify, and that you're doing something for the greater good by selling your soul, by giving away your freedom, by giving up part of yourself for this supposed greater good, which is not a greater good. It's just to not do harm to them, to not point out that they are doing evil, that they are hurting people through their actions, that they have manipulated something or someone for their own control and power and greed. The sooner people recognize that that's what's going on, that that's what's always gone on. Whenever someone somewhere creates an action that's supposed to be this ultimate bad thing that we can never do again, that should never happen to anybody else at any other time in space, that's when they bring in these words of control. That's when they tell you that you can't do an action or say a word or can't be in a space or can't congregate or can't believe something. It's where all the manipulation comes in. When you make a statement and someone says that that statement is bad to make because it points out that someone is doing something bad, and if you point out that someone is doing something bad, oh, you're against this whole group of the collectivism, the whole groupthink, the whole bringing people into these boxes of terms and conditions, and oh, we are the oppressed and you are the oppressor. The fascists and the anti-fascists, the racists and the anti-racists. It doesn't exist. It's all a manipulation. It's all a trick. It's all a big smoke screen to try and hide the true evil nature of people wanting control over you regardless of the consequences of what happens when they enact it. That is the Democrats. That is governments. That is banking. That is these word soup alphabet groups, the UN, the World Economic Forum, the International Monetary Fund, the World Health Organization, Gavi, Davos, the G7 summit, all of it. Everybody says, oh, that's conspiracy theory. No, there's not these groups of people who are trying to do these bad things to us. And it's like, yes, there is. There are groups of people from all walks of life who have stumbled into this grand pit of greed and lust and envy, and sloth, laziness, because they think that they can just sit there in this position with a word attached to their name and that they can use it and abuse it to get what they want, regardless of the consequences. And they will tell you that you're the ones doing the bad thing because you're not complying with whatever they say to conquer this great bad thing that they've invented, and that you're the evil one and that you should be eradicated and censored and not allowed to speak and not allowed to be in a group and not allowed to share any idea because it might endanger the true cause of battling this thing, whatever it may be. Climate change being one of the main examples, coronavirus being the other one. Why don't you know that you're being manipulated? Why don't you know that you're being lied to? And it's all through the virtue of thinking that what you're doing is for good. And it's not. What you're doing is being an empty-minded, compliant tool for something that you never want to examine or call out, because calling out evil is apparently evil in itself because of all these PC terms. I needed to get that off my chest. Feels good to tell you these things. Feels good to explain this. And I hope that people take notice. And I hope that people can grasp the concept and understand when they're being manipulated for someone else's benefit. Because they're not doing good. They're not on your side. They're not doing it for you. They're doing it to you. You have to recognize the difference between something being done for you and something being done to you. Because if we were in a position where our governments and the people who control our governments, who are not the people in it, but the people above it, the people who advise it, the people who control the money to it, and the policy of it, so these big global effects, globalism, we've all heard that word. You should recognize what that means. Globalism is not people coordinating around the globe in these ultra-friendly groups to come together to try and rectify this bad thing that's going on. They are doing it to manipulate as large a swathe of people as they can to try and get their own benefit out of it. It gets what they want, even if that thing is just control. Even if they don't do anything else. They sit there, they're not doing it directly to anybody. They're not going around actively harming anybody. They just sit where they sit and they use words to manipulate and control people into giving them some ego boost, mainly via their own bank account, because everybody says, oh, we have to give to this charity or to this event or to this cause, because if we don't do it, this great evil thing is going to fall upon us and destroy us all, and you're all doing it to yourselves and you should all stop and change your behaviour. The Great Reset is real. It's not a conspiracy theory. Everything written in that book is what's happening now. The fourth industrial revolution is to take your money away from you so that private commerce doesn't exist anymore, so that you can't exchange things freely amongst yourselves with no restrictions or oversight. It is full control. You are in 100% one world global tyranny at the moment. It is enacting. And hopefully there is a plan that will come together to stop it. We can leave the politicians and the people in the direct line of it to do what they're doing. We shouldn't try and get in the way of it or interact with it or try and boost it or just remain calm, pleasant, be loving. Go and attend to someone, yourself, your family, love each other. Be good people. Let whoever's doing it get on with it by themselves and just ignore them and don't comply. And when they send someone in the way to tell you that you're doing something wrong because someone's written it on a bit of paper in a special place at a special time, it's like it's all bollocks. Notice these things, please. Come together to combat this by just living as normal without performing a crime or any violent action. Just you be you. Don't actively try and do anything to manipulate any other situation. Stop calling people out for using these evil words, as you might call them. It's like, leave them alone, concentrate on yourself. You do you, and you be what you think is a good person. There are things that are good, and what is good is to leave everybody else alone. Love yourself. Love thy neighbour. Do what you want. Don't be a dick, as the common phrase goes. Hopefully, we will all come through this very soon, and there won't be this big change or global reset happen. We will go back to a sense of normality, you know, where we are all good individuals, being good individuals to each other. And then when we notice something bad, we call it out as being something bad, because it does actually hurt someone. It's not a word, it's not a fence, it's not an image that someone might not like looking at, it's not a sound that people don't want to hear. It's the bad things in life are bad things because it's one person affecting someone else for their own selfish want. That's what bad is. Don't do bad things. Help each other. Come together. If you want to form a community, but do it for the good of each other. Do it so that you take power away from some government institution that is trying to manipulate you into thinking that you're the evil one if you don't comply with doing something for the greater good. I hope this helps. I hope this is somewhat freeing, somewhat reduces the anger or the fear or the tension or the back and forth that we have with opposing ideas. We should all be on the same page. There is one common enemy. That common enemy is evil. And what evil is someone manipulating you with the absence of compassion for what may happen to you for their own benefit, for the greater good of the people on the inside group. Anyway, I've been Andy B. I hope this has been a pleasant presentation. If you could leave this a like, if you want to leave whatever comment you want to leave, if you could share this if you think it would be useful to other people. If you feel like this has been enough of a benefit where you would like to support me from succumbing to some of the forces that are going on at the moment, then there should be a Streamlabs link in the description box below. I've been told it's not working, but I shall check that on my end and see if it is, but that'd be very nice of you. It would help me out of a bad situation at the moment. Thank you very much for watching.